Hey, what's going on guys, Chris here, and today I'm mainly going to be doing a bunch of comparisons with Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 regarding the gameplay mechanics, running over what's changed and why it feels like a very different game overall. This is all information and stuff based on Battlefield 5's beta, so of course quite a few things will be tweaked and hopefully made better by the time the game releases. I'm pretty sure they will. But because it's too far down the line to start overhauling the game and changing things in a really drastic way, it's safe to say that most of the gameplay mechanics seen in the beta will play out in a fairly similar way in the final build. Though they'll probably function a bit better, down to that extra development time DICE now has by pushing the release date back, to make changes from all the feedback they gathered from the beta. And let's just say there's a hell of a lot of feedback, and they're going to be extremely busy making Battlefield 5 as good as they possibly can over the next couple of months. So why exactly does Battlefield 5 feel so different to Battlefield 1? This is obviously a shift in design that DICE really wanted to focus on, and I guess it kinda makes sense, as although a lot of people would be totally fine with a World War II game that shared most of the same mechanics and gameplay styles with Battlefield 1, basically Battlefield 1 set in the Second World War instead of the First, a lot of other people would criticise the lack of innovation between the two titles, and basically pass the game off as Battlefield 1.5. This meant that some things had to be altered, and the decision to make Battlefield 5 a more tactical, team-play focused game is quite obviously the main goal here. Now Battlefield 1 used a lot of the same tried and tested systems that the other titles did before it, but now the new controversial attrition system has come along to basically try and expand the team play aspect of the game, and make it much more important than it was in the past. As far as ammo is concerned, you've not got as much at your disposal, and you're going to have to hunt down ammo stations and fellow support players more often to get the ammo you need to go about the task in hand, which can often be a bit counterproductive, as it often forces players to essentially stick around ammo stations and guard flags, as opposed to running off and being able to confidently take on the opposition in between capture zones and objectives. I know for a fact that DICE is still working on this new low ammo attrition mechanic, and they're trying to find a nice balance that makes attrition feel more relevant without completely getting rid of it, but also making you less dependent on those ammo stations and support players too. I can totally understand why DICE has chosen to basically make ammo more of a precious commodity in Battlefield 1, as it makes the role of the support class a lot more important. And from a tactical gameplay perspective, it makes sense. It wasn't all that often you ever ran out of ammo in Battlefield 1, down to the fact that everybody generally had loads of ammo straight from the get-go. And because the ammo crates are just dotted around everywhere in the big game modes and along choke points, basically resupplying people without them even noticing due to those magical auras. This pretty much meant that running out of ammo rarely ever became too much of a problem, and the only time most people really wanted to hunt down a support player for an ammo box was usually just to stock up on their gadgets and resupply their grenades faster. The problem is, although attrition does now add a bit more emphasis on team play and tactics, it can often break the flow of the game and essentially force players to work together, which honestly isn't very fun when you're not playing in a squad with a bunch of mates. Because a lot of people who play multiplayer games do so on their own, rather than in a party with a few buddies. They have to essentially rely on randoms to help them out. And because Battlefield 5 enforces a system that focuses on higher levels of team play, this can often be a bit of a kick in the balls for gamers who like to play on their own. Because let's face it, random people often aren't very good at providing assistance when you really need it. The focus on team play has always been there from the start, and Battlefield as a series has always been a team-oriented game that promotes playing and working together, but doesn't restrict or limit you for not doing. So if you really want to be a lone wolf and capture objectives on your own, you can. Playing with a squad of friends in Battlefield 1 can be very beneficial, as you can communicate with each other and help out accordingly, overall netting you more points, rewarding you for working together and allowing you to win matches easier due to your own team play skills and coordination. Though Battlefield 1 never forces you to play in a squad, and you can have just as much fun if you don't. Though the route that Battlefield 5 is taking with its attrition system is definitely going to rub people up the wrong way, and take a bit of the fun out of the game due to squad play being even more necessary to win and even survive. At the end of the day, if people want to buy a tactical squad-oriented game, they'd probably go and play something like Rainbow Six Siege or Overwatch, not Battlefield. The attrition system is definitely going to be tweaked by the time the game comes out, so that it's not quite as problematic. I'm pretty sure this is one of the biggest concerns at the moment when it comes to the new gameplay mechanics, so don't expect it to be as annoying when the game gets released. But although it can be seen as a counterproductive system by a lot of players, there's also a lot of other people out there that actually really like the fact that they've got less ammo, as it makes you think about your decisions more, and adds a new element to the game that you've got to think about, rather than just being able to run around and keep shooting to your heart's content. Another fairly big thing that's changed from Battlefield 1 for the better in my opinion is the time it takes to revive down teammates, and the fact that you can now revive squad members, no matter what class you're using. Now I've seen a lot of people moan about the fact that it takes more time to revive players, but I do think that this extra time makes you think more about whether or not it's worth risking your own life to run out and help, as opposed to just being able to quickly jab someone with the syringe in Battlefield 1, and essentially bring entire squads back from the dead really quickly and easily at objective points, which often made objectives quite hard to take over, due to this constant cycle of people dying and being brought back to life. Although it's only a subtle change, it's a pretty big thing when you compare it to the past Battlefield games. Though the fact that every medic will now carry a syringe without having to sacrifice a gadget slot is also a step in the right direction, as the syringe and the defibrillator in other Battlefield games were often seen as the mandatory gadgets to equip, due to them being so powerful at turning the tides of battle. Now another mechanic that's massively changed from the past Battlefield games is the spotting system, as you can no longer spam the spotting button and cover the screen with those red Doritos. 3D spotting often became a bit of a habit, and I'll even admit that in Battlefield 1, I'd often spot an enemy first and then shoot afterwards, just in case they managed to get away, allowing a teammate to finish the job for me. I've seen a lot of mixed opinions on Battlefield 5's spotting system, as although it's less direct and nowhere near as accurate, it does mean that you're less likely to become a prime target for the entire enemy team to light up while you're capping a flag or running out in the open, as the spotting system in Battlefield 5 is, albeit, a bit flawed and sometimes useless, but in a way, a bit fairer overall, just being able to highlight the general direction of a possible enemy instead of painting them as a target for everyone to shoot at. This is a hell of a lot different to Battlefield 1 and other titles in the past, as it means you can't rely on the on-screen information quite as much, and you have to actively look out for possible threats, without the safety of knowing your enemy's whereabouts beforehand. But this is a pretty big learning curve for the average Battlefield player, who's been so used to using the 3D spotting system for years. And because 3D spotting has been an acceptable mechanic in games for such a long time, playing Battlefield 5 can often seem like it's missing one of the things that makes Battlefield feel like Battlefield. This basically makes the minimap even less useful than it was in Battlefield 1, which was less useful than the games before it, due to the fact that firing off your gun didn't, and still doesn't, display your position. And so you're less reliant on your on-screen information, and you'll need to keep an eye out for enemies more than ever. Which was easier said than done in the beta, with those low visibility issues, which DICE are also working on fixing for the final release. Another big thing that's changed from Battlefield 1 is how the weapons are handled, as they're much more affected by recoil instead of any complicated spread mechanics, and they also seem to kill a little bit quicker, giving you less time to dodge incoming fire or shoot back to win a gunfight. The time to kill does seem a bit quicker than in Battlefield 1, and it's probably a little bit more in line with the likes of Battlefield 4. Which can be seen as a good or bad thing depending on how fast you prefer to kill and, well, be killed. I actually quite like the Battlefield 1 kill times, as they made weapons all seem fair and balanced within their own specific optimal ranges, but I guess Battlefield 5's new faster kill time should be fine once certain weapons have been balanced, certain weapons being the STG of course. The time to kill might be altered between now and the game's release depending on player feedback, though I guess a lot of the problems surrounding the rapid kill times in the beta could have been down to issues with players not being acknowledged when they were receiving damage, and due to bugs causing bullets to group up, resulting in ridiculously quick deaths. So the time to kill might not seem as bad in the final game when all of these bugs have been squashed. While we're on the topic of weapons, variants have pretty much gone now from Battlefield 1, so basically presets of guns using specific attachments and optics to modify stats and performance. And instead, these have been replaced by the new upgrades and customization options, which let you change a weapon's appearance with different skins for the separate gun parts, along with it having a unique upgrade tree which lets you modify and essentially buff its stats, depending on which upgrades you choose. I've got a feeling that this system is going to be slightly tweaked in the main game to make the upgrades more rank specific, but overall the concept of being able to upgrade your weapons does give you more of an incentive to use them more, rather than just getting service stars like in Battlefield 1. Adding a progression system into the guns themselves. Upgrades were a bit vague in the beta and didn't really explain in a lot of detail how much they're going to buff a particular gun, but the upgrade trees were fairly straightforward and easy to figure out, allowing you to customize your weapons to fit your playstyle. It would have been a bit nicer to have these upgrades linked in with weapon parts and attachments, just so they make sense from a bit more of a realistic point of view, and in a way, because you have to commit to one side of the tree as opposed to being able to mix and match your picks, this does limit your choices slightly, and means that you might not be able to build the gun that you really want to build, because of those limitations on the upgrades tree itself. though this might be down to balancing reasons by grouping some of the less appealing upgrades with some of the stronger ones that affect the weapon's performance in a much greater way. But one thing's for certain, and that's the fact that the player using a fully upgraded gun is going to have a much better chance of winning a gunfight against a player with a non-upgraded gun. Unlike in Battlefield 1 where everyone is practically at a level playing field. So I suppose this could potentially cause balancing issues further down the line. But I guess it also provides players with a greater incentive to rank up their guns and play the game more, just like it did in Battlefields 3 and 4. So there's quite a lot that's changed from Battlefield 1 moving into Battlefield 5. And although this video is based on the gameplay mechanics during the beta, I'm pretty sure all of these mechanics will be carried over into the final build and probably tweaked and perfected before they do. There's a few other completely new things thrown into the mix here too, like fortifications and a slightly modified movement system that lets you roll after jumping from high places and stuff like that. But these are basically most of the biggest changes between the two titles, and the thing that make the gameplay feel quite different in comparison. Although they might seem like very similar games on the face of it, they definitely don't feel very similar to play. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing is all down to perspective, but I'm pretty sure DICE is going to work hard over the next couple of months to take all the beta feedback into account and adjust these gameplay mechanics accordingly, to make Battlefield 5 a really fun game that's actually worth playing. Fingers crossed. So anyway, that's it for this one folks, thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments which features you prefer in Battlefields 1 or 5. And whether or not you think DICE should have perhaps carried over some of the safer, tried and tested mechanics over to Battlefield 5, instead of creating completely new ones. Subscribe for more Battlefield content coming soon, and I'll see you in that next episode.